Oh boy, what an election. After so many elections where we had to wait for all night and maybe into the next day and toing and froing on both sides and accusations of fraud, uh, and then ending up with a vote where the popular vote, the person who got the most votes, didn't win the presidency because of the Electoral College. After all, many years of that, many cycles of that, we had a surprisingly decisive victory for Trump. And I've said on this channel before that this election was the Republicans to lose because we have inflation problem, and I'll talk about that more in depth in a moment. And we had the strange immigration policies of the Biden administration, and we had, to me, most people don't care about this. Supposedly, I'm an old foreign policy hack guy, and uh, I've seen a big change, a couple big changes in my lifetime, and one of them is in the past 4 years when we have the international order breaking down under the Biden administration for whatever reason. We have, you know, China taking all of our jobs and then telling us, we're going to do whatever we want. We're going to basically be at war with the Philippines. We're going to turn Cambodia into a client state. And if anybody gets in our way, we might want to take back Taiwan, and nobody can stop us. We'll use all the means at our disposal. Thanks for all the money from the stuff we exported to you. We have Russia going into the Ukraine, and a lot of money going into there for that, which I think maybe a lot of Americans are not that interested in, especially with our own national debt of over 34 trillion. And we have the situation. I think Iran sensed the weakness in the American position and has done all this stuff with Hamas, trying to attack Israel very successfully ultimately. And it's not all Iran's fault. Israel has gone too far and has lost the public's trust. We even had states like Venezuela. Was it Venezuela that said, "Gee, as long as the United States isn't the policeman anymore, we got a country next door. They've got some oil fields. Maybe we should take that over." And they had a referendum to say, should we just start invading? And the U.S. is out of control now. They're not controlling anything. So even having said all that, I didn't really expect a Trump win. I thought maybe the very last days, and you'll see this in the last videos, it was too close to call. And I was saying it was too close to call. And I felt like kind of a dummy because the media in this election came out with full force, every part of the media, except Fox News, which can be discounted because they're crazy. They're just one little voice, but the rest of the major news in America, NBC, CBS, ABC, and the newspapers, and they were so pro Kamala Harris, very openly, not in commentary, editorials, analysis pieces, but in direct news and trying to tell people inflation isn't so bad, or that America's more respected than it's ever been. So, yeah, that was a shock. I just, the only thing I knew was at the end, if they're neck and neck, we know that the Republicans underpoll because of the demonization that the media, that celebrities, all the Hollywood celebrities came out to kind of laugh and pat each other on the back that Kamala Harris was being elected. There's so much of that, people become afraid to express support for Republican candidates, and I think we saw that in 2016, where again, I wasn't expecting fully a Trump victory, but I thought it has to be a bigger turnout for him because so many people have been demonized by public pressure from the media, perhaps On your university campus that people are afraid to admit they're voting for Trump. Um, there's a lot of articles today about what happened, uh, what went wrong with the Harris campaign. And all the people who were formerly touting that, oh, the polls look great for her and she's going to do good at Iowa and on and on. Suddenly, they saw all of these problems from the beginning. Now, I think I did. If you watch this channel, and of course, very few people do, um, uh, I've been talking about the issues such as inflation and immigration and the breakdown of the world order that was maintained by the United States. And particularly in inflation, the media has tried to tell people. There were articles about this back in January about the vibe economy. All the media came out with the same kind of stories to say, well, if you think that you're paying for McDonald's more than in the past or more than groceries, you're just kind of mistaken, because we have these meta indicators that show spending power overall has increased, blah, blah, blah. See, that's all, as they say now, cope, because there were a couple indicators like McDonald's, fast food, and groceries that common Joe lunch pails could see. And they could see that it's changed. And for a lot of people, unless you're old enough in the United States, we never really had big inflation problems since the 70s. I can remember like 20 or 21%, some inflation, maybe housing, really high inflation back in the 70s. But Reagan defeated that, and it's been kind of calm ever since. So I think for a lot of people, it was this level of price increases has been a shock to people. And there's so much in the media where they talking about, there was a comedian at one of Trump's rallies, and he made a joke about how third world Puerto Rico is, which it kind of is. But, you can't make that joke. You shouldn't make that joke. But a lot of the media were touting this almost like, instead of policies, it was just like, well, how dare he say that? And I was a little surprised by that tact, because there was so much of that in 2016. Just like, well, we're not interested in Trump policies or talking about policies of our own, but we'll just say somebody said this, and thus that makes him disqualified. And in fact, I think this time around, Kamala Harris said that directly. Because of certain statements he made, Trump is disqualified. And this is like the social media bashing, or like if you say the wrong thing on Twitter, they'll find out who you are, and you like have to apologize, and it never ends, and they try to cancel you. People tried to apply that to politics in the 2016 election. And, since then, so much of the media and so much online has just been talking about, hey, Trump said this, that disqualifies him. Well, clearly, people know who Trump is. They saw his previous campaign or his previous presidency. Now, and they're not that concerned about it. They want someone who's going to do the job. Now, I was the one who kept saying, and a lot of people now are saying, well, it's a mistake for people to have said Trump, it's scary if he's elected because it's the end of the democracy, on and on, because he was already a president. And we saw what he was like. He was very chaotic. And we understood that. And before the election, there was none of that talk. But I did talk about that. And I did say many times he was a known quantity. And so a lot of these arguments about, in any election, you say, well, if I'm elected, it's great. And if this person's elected, it's disaster. You don't know what's going to happen. They tried that with Trump, but he was already in power before. And so that kind of play against Trump, it's not going to work. And I've been saying that for some time. So yeah, can't get past inflation. despite how many times the New York Times tells you you're mistaken in a news article about inflation. Uh, and the thing, I don't know if anybody said this. So many people are talking, but I think I thought of this myself. It came into my mind. It's the economy, stupid. Now, if you're old enough, if you remember the 90s when Clinton got into power, that was the statement. And I had to look it up to see who said it first, but it was James Carville, the kind of the ultimate guy you would want running your campaign, and he helped usher Clinton into power. And they had the mantra, "It's the economy, stupid," meaning all the kind of resting on their laurels that George H.W. Bush, the first Bush, did during his campaigning. It didn't matter because people were hurting because of the recession, and they had to address that. That same thing exactly came into play here in this Trump election, certainly. Uh, and it also, the Clintons did kind of take back that they were supporting the common man, the working stiffs, the regular Joes, the Joe lunch pails, that they were interested in that demographic, regular issues for regular people about addressing inflation and tariffs against a country like China, which has openly kind of declared itself an adversary of the United States. That like other countries that we opened trade with and we got intermeshed in international agreements, brought together in unified economies, that has helped to build middle classes in other countries, and it's helped that creates the impetus internally for more liberalism, more democracy in those countries. It's a way of doing it without having to send them the troops in and then failing nevertheless. So, yeah, I got a call. Hold on. Okay, I'm back. Sorry. So we go from the situation of it's the economy, stupid, and a party like the Democrats who have always been for the underdog, the working man, the pro-union party, sort of. Well, in the 1990s, Clinton sort of took up the mantle and did a lot of the things that the Republicans said they were going to do, like balance the budget. And they became the internationalists, the Democrats, just like the Republicans did with open and free trade. But in this election, and I suppose before it, Trump has turned that on its head. And now he and the Republicans are the party of the working man. I think this is the perception, with direct entrees to we're going to make your life better, where the Democrats are maybe stuck in a loop of focusing on rights for immigrants and maybe niche groups of people. There's a lot of talk today about how black people, Hispanic people, voted in large number for Trump. And any Democrat who's shocked by that, they have to stop looking at people as their ethnicity or their race and look at their economic underpinnings, because these people who voted for Trump, who the Democrats thought should have voted for them, they're voting with their pocketbooks. Same thing maybe with white women. They were critical, like, well, we ran a woman. Why didn't all women vote for them? You're a traitor. You love the patriarchy, as they say. But again, that's looking at people through some immutable characteristic, their gender, their sex, their race, this sort of thing. And people obviously voted for different things, and maybe this is the end for a while of thinking that voter blocks are going to be centered around those characteristics. Yeah, there's a lot of thoughts that go through your mind. I had a note here several times. It was surprising how every kind of media worked so hard to pump up Harris. I mean, I think she did a pretty good job considering the short time. Apparently, it was not good enough. I mean, as they say now, she didn't outperform Biden in any county in the whole country. Now, knowing that and looking back on the news coverage you've received in the last year, is the lesson that you cannot trust the news media anymore because they're giving you a picture because they seem to apparently want to support one party over another. Uh, this is, and like I said, I'm not a big Trump supporter, but we have to come to this sort of conclusion, obviously. Uh, I also wanted to point out, let's see if we have Germans mock the USA. Where is this? Hope and fear, especially in Germany. End of the American War World by France, German. It just should be brought into it. I try to add some context to this. You know, here we have Trump, apparently. This is Oscar the Grouch. I can't really see if I could get it. Oh, there we are. Here's Oscar the Grouch, but he's colored yellow to be like Trump, so it's a garbage person. So, haha, the Germans are mocking us for this guy, but see, they're scared. If you had to, I had to look at there at some point in past years. There was an agreement with Europe, the European countries, that they had to raise their defense spending to was either 2.75 of GDP or 1.75, which is hardly anything, because they were depending on the United States and billions of dollars. And not only that, but actual bases. Of course, we have bases in their country with our people there protecting their country from something, I guess Russia now. So a lot of the problem with Trump is that he is not clear exactly in some of his policies. Maybe that's good because the media would try to pin him down, but it certainly seems like he, unlike Biden, is going to hold the feet of these countries to the fire. Some of the European countries, some of the richest countries in the world, you know, your Sweden's, Germany, they're going to have to abide by the agreements to raise their military spending. Those countries all have much more lavish social programs and a lot of free medical care that Americans cannot dream about. However, our boys and girls are stationed in their country to protect them from Russia. So hopefully this will be an opportunity not to break up NATO, but to insist that these countries in Europe pay their fair share for the defense, especially now when it's a big issue because Trump wants to end these foreign wars, which certainly will be some sort of negotiated settlement with Russia, with prohibitions on other countries entering NATO. We'll see how that plays out. I mean, personally, for me, I do think that the U.S. has to be engaged in making the world the way that it's safe for itself. Because if we don't, and you see Biden, the U.S. took the eye off the ball for just a few years, and the whole world has gone nuts. Russia and China openly adversarial, building new alliances against the United States. The stuff that's happening in the Middle East. So we have to create the kind of world we want. On the other hand, and I've talked about this before as well, in the early 2000s, again, the media that supports the Democrats, all of the major media in the U.S., went hard to tell us George Bush is a war criminal for invading Iraq and Afghanistan. He's going to be hauled before the Hague. He's a joke that nobody likes. He can't ever be elected again. And eventually, a lot of people, even Republicans, thought, maybe you're right. We do have after the yearly budget was balanced in the United States by Bill Clinton, we're moving up into huge spending. We're going into getting to multi-trillion-dollar deficits. Maybe it isn't the best spend of money to take care of these countries that won't spend for themselves and have lavish social programs that Americans can only dream of. So I think all of the culture has been inculcated in that. So I, I, I understand the impulse from people to say, let's not have any more foreign wars. Let's try to wind some of these things down, especially when, the U.S. is on the hot seat over them. Of course, there's all kinds of contradictions in this, like what's going to happen in Israel, because we have the situation there where this is in one day, two of the biggest breaks on Netanyahu disappeared. So one is he fired a defense minister, but the other is Donald Trump's election, which he has signaled he just wants Israel to go in there and finish this up and clear up this thing once and for all. So that's more support for a conflict that most Americans, or a lot of Americans, disagree with by the way it's conducted. This is certainly on Israel and on Netanyahu, because these countries know what happened when the U.S. went into Iraq and went into Afghanistan. The media watches them like a hawk, and if some innocent people get killed, they're all over that, and the U.S. has to apologize and make excuses. Well, Israel has seemed to take in the situation where they're clearly the victim, and they clearly have a right to strike back, and they've gone way, way too far, and they've lost the public approval, most importantly in the United States, which underwrites all of that stuff in Israel. I don't know. I think that's about it. Here we have Trump's legal cases winding up, going to be wound up because Trump is president again. Everything's turning out for him. I certainly hope he handles this mandate wisely. And I don't hate Kamala Harris. Again, I think it's the economy, stupid. That's why she lost. And I had this quote up here about where Trump's campaign manager saying, so much was made about this quote that Harris said when she was asked by a very friendly interviewer if she would have done anything differently from Biden over the past 4 years, and she said, it's not a thing that comes to mind. And ever since that time, they had to walk that back. But that's emblematic of the difficulty an incumbent has to deal with in running. Vice presidents don't often get elected. It has to do with maybe Harris being an untempered candidate. She was an appointed candidate by, we don't really know who, because they had the primary elections and they voted for Biden. And then at the end, she was appointed and she didn't have a lot of time. Some of the answers, the way they kind of kept her out of some interviews, were a little bit suspicious to try to keep her from saying something crazy like this. I guess Trump inoculates himself against that by saying crazy things all the time. But I would also say, if you look at my last video, it's about like how to read some of the way that the media is portraying the Trump quotes. If you actually look at exactly what he said in the context or the tone or see the video, it just seems kind of funny or silly, or maybe he shouldn't have said that, but it doesn't seem as demonic or demented as the media kept telling us it was. And finally, I've said finally several times here, but I'll say finally the final time and just say, the media has spoke with one voice to tell us that Biden was not too old, that he was totally capable, and that was shown as a lie. And then they spent months and months telling us that Harris was going to, well, give the impression that she was just fantastic and there was a momentum for her. And that wasn't the case either, ultimately. And I know there's other factors that factor into that about this unusual election with her being appointed as candidate at the last minute and the way Republicans underpoll. But yeah, I think that's the lesson. Something has to happen with our news media to try to go back to at least attempt to be a little unbiased or disinterested, as opposed to having every news article being a commentary. And this is really a question, I think, for the Democratic Party. They have this influence and they used it a lot in the election. Should they use it? Maybe not, because it leads to things like all the lies that were told about Biden's mental health, and then the kind of the cheerleading for Harris. So in one way, the election's done, but it's just ramping up again. So there'll be more, and I'll be here to talk about some of these issues to try to cut through it and have a little context so we can step back and not be so, not be, impelled to march in someone else's parade or be too upset about things. Let's just step back and understand what's really going on. Please like and subscribe or watch these videos. Very few do, but I think there's some good information here, if I do say so myself. Thank you. Bye-bye.